My name is Fauzia Khan. I am representing Nokia here today. And we have already, I think, gone through what process mining is, and I'm here to present the benefits of process mining in supply chain. So I'm just going forward. A little bit about me. I'm part of the global operations in supply chain in Nokia office based out of Munich. Roughly 11 years ago, I started working as a software programmer and kind of realized that IT and business is a very closed entity. It's tightly coupled. And then I moved on actually working for Nokia. Right now, I'm currently leading the robotics process automation program in supply chain. And my goal is there to ensure that digitalization, process automation, process mining, machine learning does not just remain big, huge terminologies, but you can see an actual live implementation of it. And looking at the digital revolution going on, I think it's the time is now, as Mati said, the time is today to utilize those technologies and do something with it. In supply chain, I think my experience of supply chain started when, or let's say my experience of what a truly digital, interconnected world of data started with creating a platform for a leading service provider, logistics service provider company in Germany, where there were GPS tracking devices mounted on trucks roaming around in the whole country, and they were sending real-time information to a platform where you could utilize the data to predict how the geofences are, or monitor humidity, or ensure the safety of goods. So it was very fascinating to see what data could do, and I thought, this is it. This is going to change the world. Only to realize that we are just getting started with the data, and it's like sort of finding something in needle in a haystack. So just to go forward, what do data mean to us? So we know that we have a lot of data, but we always have problems with insights. So we do not know the insights, but we do have a lot of data. There is about an exponential growth of tenfolds in the last 2 years in generating data. However, only 1% of the shipping containers across the globe are truly connected. Which sector creates the maximum amount of data? Manufacturing. And yet, people say, not me, that 99% of the data can be discarded before you can actually utilize that data for making any decision in your company. So in that huge, complex world of lot of data, where is Nokia positioned? So a little bit to update you on what Nokia does. We serve large enterprises, governments, communication service providers with platforms, for example, enabling infrastructure to give 5G facilities or virtual reality applications and so on. Within supply chain, global operations in Nokia covers basically from providing sales support to giving better customer-based supply chain, and to also increase customer-centric supply chain. And we are a big global company with about 100,000 employees living in 100 different countries with 160 different nationalities. So you can imagine how complex that world looks like and how complex that process is. So what happens when you have complex processes with a huge data influx? You can have high degree of deviation in the process. You can have high degree of variation in the process. And you can have those nice 3 different type of flows that Petri was talking about, which look pretty much all the same from far distance, but they are quite different. Any one of you from quality, process improvement, business process management team here? Okay, so you kind of know the mega trends of process improvement activities. When we have complex process and we have large data, what do? We embark on journey and programs to do process improvement, to improve operational efficiency, to do cost cutting, to do cost optimization, to increase productivity. We all know these big terms. And we know that achieving process excellence is not a one-time thing. It's not an easy thing, and it is not a singular event. It is a continuous improvement of a lot of things together. So if you want to do innovation with process improvement, you just cannot do it as one person. It's not one Einstein having an aha moment somewhere. It's actually a collective journey of a lot of people to achieve that. So there is Lean, Kaizen, lot of technologies. We have all of this in our organization up our sleeves. So why process mining? The answer is, the electric light, as we know, is not a continuous improvement of candles. So you have to be disruptive. You have to think out of the box. You have to leverage different technologies, yes, to achieve the same result, which is cost optimization, however, with different facts on the table. So we began the journey of process mining with QPR, with Mati, and a lot of team members who technically supported us for the past, I think, 1.5 years. We started with doing a proof of concept, selecting the technology, because there are 18 different vendors out there. So I would like to share my experience with QPR and why QPR is actually a great tool to do this kind of exercise. So we started with a small data of about 2,000 sales orders, which for Nokia is a very, very teeny tiny data sample compared to, I don't know, 9 to 10 million records in one month. And we just tested a small sample because we wanted to see how the benefits would come out. And we got the benefits with the tool, thankfully, and the tool was selected, and we began to do the pilot. In the pilot, we decided to take 3 different processes: the order to cash process, the procure to pay process. But Nokia at that time, last year, as you know, was going through a major merger and acquisition with Alcatel-Lucent. So we had on the left side legacy Nokia processes, on the right side legacy Alu processes, and we were looking for one tool that would help us understand in an organization with 50% of employees coming from Nokia and 50% coming from Alcatel-Lucent, and none of them know completely the entire story. So what would be that tool that would help you before you start harmonizing your new processes, your old processes into new one? We selected QPR to basically assess that situation and make everybody aware, the Nokia people aware of what the Alu processes are, and vice versa. So we did that with 1 year's data on both sides. And then the ultimate proof of value was to, as Yari said in the morning, that it's not just about insights, it's about what do you do with the insights. So we then tailored them into different redesigning projects through a funnel. And right now we are industrializing or scaling the process mining exercise into leveraging it for different other things, like what we call digital VSM, a value stream mapping. I'm sure you're familiar with what a value stream mapping is. So something like that. So we did process mining, and it was successful, and it was great. But what do you mean by success? Previous presentations quoting them, success is not just defined by, yes, we got the business case, but it's the actual improvement of your process, and that you can see the improvement has happened and occurred. So that's what we saw when we did the process mining exercise first. It's an uncomfortable picture. It's very funny to see how you use your hands to eat spaghetti. It's impossible. It's mess. So the first time we showed the data out of 2,000 sales order, mess had been served. And we then did not know what to do with those observations. We found great opportunities where you could find out where the improvements can be done or how it can be done. A few examples. So after the discovery was done, after the exercise finished, we just ran to our head of order to cash, head of procurement, and other stakeholders to show them, look what we have found, it's great, and let's just fix them. Because that's what people think. When they find a problem, they go head on collision with the problem and they want to fix the issues. So very funny things we saw, like for example, 34 different process variations in order intake process, or for example, 40% of the order changes happening after the delivery's creation, which I'm familiar, all of you, I think, know that an order should not be modified after the delivery has been created. Then other things like customer contracts being updated after the entire process is through. So, and the last one is about the lead times. So we all know we suffer from the cycle time, long lead times, deviations, etc. So all of these activities were happening in the company and nobody seemed to bother. And you wonder, oh, why it's such a big problem for me? Why it's not such a big problem for all the other people? Because data is open, it's out there, people know it, but they don't care about it. So you have to convert and bring the motivation in your organization to really bring a common understanding that they feel the same pain. So I created kind of what I call a process mining methodology, which is pretty simple. It's a 5-step process of how to execute process mining in a right way. So it's not about just pooling all the data into one tool and just going right after it. It's about assessing what you want to define your problem statement, which process scope you are looking for, what issues do you have. So talk to the people, understand a bit, have the clarity a bit on where do you want to start with. Once that is done, that's the easy step. You define the key users, you define the stakeholders, you find the problem, and then you build the process model, which QPR helps you to do that. And after that is done, you enrich the data, you iterate. That activity is a bit recursive. And at step 3, you create a value proposition of your problem statement. So what would it mean if I would fix this issue? And then the next step is to shortlist the projects. What do you want to do with that issue? What improvement it would bring, and you do a bit of effort versus impact. I'm sure everybody knows that in the business case. And the step 4, which is the most critical and the most challenging part of the entire methodology and the maximum time-consuming part, is running and executing that action plan. So you define the action plan, and then you want to see it in action. Once that happens, most of the projects in our project transformation basically stop there. So if you have promised your company that you will improve a process and it would reduce the lead time by 20% and it would increase the efficiency of the process, nobody comes back after 2 years when the project has been executed and everything looks fine. We just look at the report and say, oh, my KPIs are green, everything is okay. But how do you make sure that people who commit on doing an improvement actually make the improvement? So you give the process a bit of a time of breathing, 6 to 8 months, and you go back and reapply the process methodology within the same scope that you started, and then you can see how you can highlight the improvements. The complex nature of our process sometimes gives us the flexibility to run such an exercise either in several weeks or months or even a year. So next coming up is what happens when you have identified. So I just quickly go back. At step 3, you do the value assessment, and that slide is focusing what do you do with step 3. So you shortlist the projects, but before that, you have a common understanding in your company that this is the problem that I have identified. You communicate it. You have the buy-in from not just top down, but actually with your process community, with your process owners, with your key users. And once that is achieved, then you ask the team to propose solutions and ideas. And once that is achieved, you have to map these projects into different buckets, because not everything in the company requires funding. You can sometimes do a lot of great things without funding. For example, change management topics. You can drive training sessions, which do not need any money at all. It just needs commitment and effort, but not money. So we shortlisted those projects, and then we basically identified the priorities and ran through the journey. And while we were running this exercise of the entire step 5 process mining methodology, I came across, or the team of process mining team in Nokia came across a lot of opinions. And it's a roller coaster of change management that you ride. So you hear doubts, beliefs, chaos, different opinions. And some of them are listed here. So you start with hearing, my KPIs are green, I don't need process mining. Or another example would be, what is process mining? It's analytics, so it's kind of reporting, so I don't need it. Another interesting one is when people say, no one has an overview of end-to-end processes with all the variations. Nobody can ever have an overview, but everybody knows what they want to do in the organization and what they have to do, which is such a clashing statement. My favorite one is, we have conducted several interviews with our process owner community, and we have all the valuable information we need. I don't need process mining. So what do you do with such opinions? You handle them with facts on the table. Just a joke. Beware, this is not for faint-hearted people, because you know that every great initiative, every innovative initiative with disruption always has a lot of challenges. And it will bring you on a stage where you would be faced with a lot of difficult situations and communication issues. So how to do that? When you have identified the process scope, people will come back and say, I don't need this. So you face a challenge, you overcome that. Then QPR tool is rather easy. So you ask help from the QPR technical people. They will take your data, transform the models, give you the visibility of how your process visualization looks like with all the issues, if you have the data on the table. So that's it. The third step is what I call the devil's dome, because the devil is sitting on the top. So once you're reaching on the top, you have issues like, do you have a business case to run this improvement? What is the break-even? What are the risks? Oh, I'm so worried you will use a lot of funding. Will you really be successful? But that's not the way of identifying whether you will be successful. You have been already successful by informing the company with facts that you have issues in the process and where to head on to fix them. So another challenge, you overcome that as well. Then the never-ending journey of an action plan execution begins, which you also overcome. And at the end, you find a happy stakeholder who has really benefited from what you have done with the process mining exercise. That's Eric, my colleague from Procure to Pay, both of us, we did the process mining experience together. Kind of this timeline feels like forever, but just to guarantee you and not to demotivate you, but to say that it has a lot of challenges, but at every step you can overcome them. Just a small sample of what we did with the Procure to Pay case. So on the top, you can see where it says current process. That was the process of former Nokia and former Alcatel-Lucent. There were two very distinct processes in two totally different tool landscape and teams. And the goal was to create a new harmonized Nokia process within SAP Ariba. So we utilized process mining, and we ran it for about 6 months to really assess how the legacy Nokia, legacy Alcatel-Lucent processes look like. And then those findings were contributed to the new process redesign of Procure to Pay in Ariba. And that's what the big benefits that I talked about previously in the slide looks like. So just quoting, what kind of benefits do you see with process mining? So process mining tool helps you in guiding, for example, in Procure to Pay, how your ordering process, procurement process looks like. How do you raise a purchase order? How many approvals does it take? What kind of different teams are involved? How often do you have the rework within the process? And we identified, for example, that roughly there were 21 different approval steps for certain orders. So we went back to the team and asked, why do you have so many different approval steps? And that was the thing that led to limiting the number of approval steps, identifying the role and responsibility of the team, that they are aware of what they have to do and they know exactly how the process flows. And then other things like automation and robotics kicked in, and we just went live with SAP Ariba. So basically the lessons learned is it's a fact-based view of your process, and process mining basically helps you in bringing that facts on the table. A bit on the key takeaways. So we know that just providing insights is not enough. You have to learn from the past to unlearn it, so you can do it differently. Then there are silos, internal silos, IT, F&C. Within supply chain operations, there is sourcing, procurement, order management, order handling, and so on. So you have to tame these internal silos. There is a lot of data. It's out there in the open. Utilize that data, because the velocity with which the data is getting created is not going to decrease. And you just have to find out what data is most important for you, and not just look at the reports to define your business is fine, or my process excellence is okay, my process maturity is okay. Then joining the hands with the team, understand what is happening and why it's happening. Do the critical competence sharing within your team to give them the feeling that they are being heard, and their improvement ideas could be actually leveraged here. And the last one is relying on a goodwill of one person. So innovation and disruption cannot be just achieved by one person in the company. It is a collective effort, and you need as many more people who have a great attitude, who want to do great things, and they can be coming together as a team to run such an exercise. And once you have all these things in place, you have the right tool for the right job. Thank you.